Cakes, puffs, biscuits, etc. Part 1. Always have everything in readiness before you begin to make any kind of cakes. Then beat your eggs well, and never leave them till they are finished, as by that means your cakes will not be so light. When you put butter in your cakes, be particularly careful in beating it to a fine cream before you put in the sugar. Otherwise, double the beating will not have so good an effect. Rice cakes, seed cakes or plum cakes are best baked in wooden garths, for when they are baked in pots or tins, the outsides of the cakes are burned, and they are so confined that the heat cannot penetrate into the middle, which hinders its rising. To make orange cakes. Take 6 Seville oranges, grate the rinds of 2 of them, then cut off the rinds of all 6 to the juice, and boil them in water till very tender. Squeeze out all the water you can, and beat them to a paste in a marble mortar. Rub it through a hair sieve, and what will not easily rub through must be beaten again till it will. Cut to pieces the insides of your oranges, and rub as much of them through as you possibly can. Then boil about 6 or 8 pippins, as in much water as will almost cover them. Boil them to a paste, and rub it through a sieve to the rest. Put all in a pan together, and give them a thorough heat till they are well mingled. Then, to every pound of this paste, take 1 pound and a quarter of loaf sugar. Clarify the sugar and boil it to the crick. Put in your paste and the grated peel, and stir it all together over a slow fire till it is well mixed and the sugar all melted. Then, with a spoon, fill your round tin moulds and set them in a warm stove to dry. When dry on the tops, turn them on sieves to dry on the other side, and when quite dry, box them up. Another way to make orange cakes. Take what quantity you please of Seville oranges that have good rinds, quarter them and boil them in 2 or 3 waters till they are tender and the bitterness is gone off. Skin them and lay them on a clean napkin to dry. Take all the skins and seeds out of the pulp with a knife, shred the peels fine, put them to the pulp, weigh them, and put rather more than their weight of fine sugar into a tossing pan, with just as much water as will dissolve it. Boil it till it becomes a perfect sugar, and then by degrees put in your orange peels and pulp. Stir them well before you set them on the fire. Boil it very gently till it looks clear and thick, and then put them into flat-bottomed glasses. Set them in a stove and keep them in a constant and moderate heat, and when they are candied on the top, turn them out upon glasses. To make orange clear cakes. Take the best pippins, pare them into as much water as will cover them, and boil them to a mash. Then press out the jelly upon a sieve and strain it through a bag, adding juice of oranges to give it an agreeable taste. To every pound of jelly take 1 pound and a quarter of loaf sugar, boil it till it cracks, and then put in the jelly and the rind of a grated orange or 2. Stir it up gently over a slow fire till all is incorporated together. Then take it off and fill your clear cake glasses. What scum arises on the top you must carefully take off before they are cold. Then put them into a stove, and when you find them begin to crust upon the upper side, turn them out upon squares of glasses and put them to dry again. When they begin to have a tender candy, cut them into quarters or what pieces you please, and let them dry till hard. Then turn them on sieves, and, when thorough dry, Put them in your boxes. As they begin to sweat in the box, shift them from time to time, and it will be requisite to put no more than one row in a box at the beginning till they do not sweat. Lemon colour cakes are made with lemons, as these. To make lemon cakes. Take 6 thick rind lemons, grate 2 of them, then pare off all the yellow peel and strip the white to the juice, which white boil till tender and make a paste exactly as for orange cakes. Another way to make lemon cakes. Take the best coloured lemons, scrape out the blacks and grate off the peel clean. Put the peel into a strainer, wet what sugar you think will serve and boil it to a candy height. Then take it off and put in your lemon peel. When it boils, take it off, squeeze in a little lemon juice and drop them on buttered plates or papers. You may put in musk or ambergris if you please. To make gooseberry clear cakes. Gooseberry clear cakes may be made after the same manner as the paste, with this difference only. Strain the jelly through the bag before you weigh it for use. To make raspberry cakes. To make raspberry cakes. Pick all the grubs and spotted raspberries away, then bruise the rest and put them on a hair sieve over an earthen pan. Put on them a board and weight to press out all the water you can. Then put the paste into your preserving pan and dry it over the fire till you perceive no moisture left in it, stirring it all the time it is on the fire to keep it from burning. Weigh it, and to every pound take 1 pound and 2 ounces of sugar, beat to a fine powder, and put it in by degrees. When all is in, put it on the fire and incorporate them well together. Take them from the fire, scrape all to one side of the pan, let it cool a little, then put it into your moulds. When quite cold, put them into your stove without dusting them, and dry it as other paste. Note: you must take particular care that your paste does not boil after your sugar is in, for if it does, it will grow greasy. To make raspberry clear cakes. Take 2 quarts of ripe gooseberries or white currants and 1 quart of red raspberries. Put them into a stone jug and stop them close. Put it into a pot of cold water, as much as will cover the neck of the jug. Boil them in that water till it comes to a paste, then turn them out in a hair sieve placed over a pan. Press out all the jelly and strain it through the jelly bag. Take 20 ounces of double refined sugar and boil it till it will crack in the water. Take it from the fire, put in your jelly and stir it over a slow fire till all the sugar is melted. Give it a good heat till all is incorporated. Take it from the fire, scum it well, and fill your cake glasses. Take off what scum is on them and put them into the stove to dry, observing the method directed before for clear cakes. Note: in filling out your clear cakes and clear pastes, you must be as expeditious as possible, for if it cools it will be a jelly before you can get it into them. White raspberry clear cakes are made after the same manner, only mixing white raspberries with the gooseberries in the infusion. Another way to make raspberry clear cakes. Take 2 quarts of gooseberries and 2 quarts of red raspberries. Put them in a pan with about 1.5 pints of water. Boil them over a quick fire to a mummy. Throw them upon an earthen pan. Press out all the juice, then take that juice and boil it in another quart of raspberries. Throw them on a sieve and rub all through the sieve that you can. Then put in the seeds and weigh the paste. To every pound take 20 ounces of fine loaf sugar boiled. When clarified till it cracks, remove it from the fire, put in your paste, mix it well, and set it over a slow fire, stirring it till all the sugar is melted and you find it is become a jelly. Take it from the fire and fill your pots or glasses whilst very hot. Scum them and put them into the stove, observing when cold to dry them as you do other pastes. To make raspberry biscuits. Press out the juice and dry the paste a little over the fire, then rub all the pulp through a sieve and weigh them. To every pound take 18 ounces of sugar sifted very fine, and the whites of 4 eggs. Put all in the pan together, and with a whisk beat it till it is very stiff, so that you may lay it in pretty high drops, and when it is so beaten, drop it in what form you please on the glazed sides of cards, paper being too thin. If it be difficult to get them off, dust them a little with very fine sugar, and put them into a very warm stove to dry. When they are dry enough, they will come easily from the cards, but while soft they will not stir. Then take and turn them on a sieve, let them remain a day or two in the stove, then pack them up in your box, and they will, in a dry place, keep all the year without shifting them. To make a bride cake. Take 4 pounds of fine flour well dried, 4 pounds of fresh butter, 2 pounds of loaf sugar. Pound and sift fine 1/4 of an ounce of mace and the same quantity of nutmegs. To every pound of flour put 8 eggs. Wash and pick 4 pounds of currants and dry them before the fire. Blanch a pound of sweet almonds and cut them lengthways very thin. A pound of citron, a pound of candied orange, a pound of candied lemon, and half a pint of brandy. First work the butter with your hand to a cream, then beat in your sugar 1/4 of an hour. Beat the whites of your eggs to a very strong froth, mix them with your sugar and butter. Beat the yolks half an hour at least, and mix them with your cake. Then put in your flour, mace, and nutmeg. Keep beating it till the oven is ready. Put in your brandy and beat the currants and almonds lightly in. Tie 3 sheets of paper round the bottom of your hoop to keep it from running out. Rub it well with butter. Put in your cake and the sweetmeats in 3 lays, with cake betwixt every lay. After it has risen and coloured, cover it with paper before your oven is stopped up. It will take another 3 hours baking. Another way to make a bride cake. Wash and rub 7 pounds of currants, place them before the fire. Take 4 pounds of flour, dry and sift it, 6 pounds of fresh butter, which work with your hand till it comes to a cream, 2 pounds of loaf sugar beat and sifted fine. Blanch 2 pounds of almonds, pound them fine, 1/4 of an ounce of mace, cloves and cinnamon, 3 nutmegs and some ginger, half a pint of sack, and the same quantity of brandy. Sweetmeats such as candied orange, lemon, and citron. Work the butter well into a cream, then put in your sugar. Let the eggs, which must be 8 to every pound of flour, be beat well, and strain through a sieve. Put in your almonds, beat them well, then put in the sack, brandy, and spices. Shake the flour in by degrees. When your oven is ready, put in your currants and sweetmeats. Tie a few sheets of paper at the bottom of the hoop, but rub it well with butter. It will take 4 hours baking. To make almond icing for the bride cake. Take the whites of 6 eggs, 1.5 pounds of double refined sugar. Beat a pound of Jordan almonds, blanch them and pound them fine in a little rose water. Then mix all together and whisk it well for an hour or two, then lay it over your cake and put it in an oven. To make pomegranate clear cakes. Draw your jelly as for the orange clear cakes, then boil it in the juice of 2 or 3 pomegranate seeds, and all with the juice of an orange and lemon, the rind of each grated in. Then strain it through a bag, and to every pound of jelly put 1.25 pounds, boiled till it cracks. To make the colour a fine red, put in a spoonful of cochineal, prepared as we have directed. Then fill your glasses and order them as oranges. To make apricot cakes. Take a pound of nice ripe grapes, scald and peel them, take out the stones, then beat them in a mortar to a pulp. Boil 1/2 pound of double refined sugar with a spoonful of water and skim it well, then put in the pulp of your apricots and simmer them 1/4 hour over a slow fire, stirring them softly all the time. Then put it into shallow flat glasses, and when cold turn them out on glass plates. Put them in a stove and turn them once a day till they are dry. To make apricot clear cakes. First draw a jelly from codlings, and in that jelly boil some very ripe apricots, and press them upon a sieve over an earthen pan. Then strain it through your jelly bag, and to every pound of jelly take the like quantity of fine loaf sugar, which clarify and boil till it cracks. Then put in the jelly, mix it well and give it a heat on the fire. Scum it and fill your glasses. In drying, order them as before directed. To make clear cakes of white pear plums. Take the clearest of your plums, put them into a gallipot, and boil them in a pot of boiling water till they are enough. Let the clear part run from them, and to every pound of liquor add as much sugar, boiled to a candy height. Then take it off, put the liquor to it, and stir all together till it be thoroughly hot, but not boiled. Put it in glasses and dry them in a stove with a constant warm fire. To make almond cakes or figures. Boil a pound of double refined sugar to a thin candy. Blanch with orange flower water 1/2 pound of Jordan almonds. Add the juice of 1 lemon and the peels of 2, grated to the juice. First boil your sugar and almonds together, stirring it till the sugar is boiled to a proper height. Put in the lemon juice, stir it well together over a slow fire, taking care it does not boil after the juice is in. Make this into cakes or what form or shape you please, either gilt or plain. Another way to make almond cakes or figures. Take 2 ounces of bitter and 1 pound of sweet almonds, blanched and beat, with a little rose or orange flower water and the white of an egg, 1/2 pound of sifted loaf sugar, 8 yolks and 3 whites of eggs, the juice of half a lemon, the rind grated. Bake it either in one large pan or small pans. To make almond loaves. Beat a pound of almonds very fine, mix them well with 3/4 pound of sifted sugar. Set them over the fire, keep them stirring till they are stiff, and put in the rind of a lemon grated very fine. Make them up in little loaves, shake them well in the whites of eggs beat to a very stiff froth, that the eggs may hang about them. Then put them in a pan with a pound of fine sifted sugar. Divide them if they stick together, and add more sugar till they begin to be smooth and dry. And when you put them on papers to bake, shake them in a pan that is just wet with white of eggs to make them have a gloss. Bake them after biscuits on papers and tin plates. To make little candied cakes. Take double refined sugar finely seared, about a silver ladleful. Wet it no more than will make it boil to a candy height, and put in what flowers you please. Strew some sugar upon them, glass drop them upon white paper, and take them off hot to avoid their sticking. To make a great rich cake. Take a peck of flour well dried, an ounce of nutmeg, and as much cinnamon. Beat the spice well, mix them with your flour, a pound and a half of sugar, some salt, 13 pounds of currants well washed, picked and dried, and 3 pounds of raisins stoned and cut into small pieces. Mix all these well together, make 5 pints of cream almost scalding hot, put into it 4 pounds of fresh butter, beat the yolks of 20 eggs, 3 pints of good ale yeast, a pint of sack, a quarter of a pint of orange flower water, 3 grains of musk and 6 grains of ambergris. Mix these together and stir them into your cream and butter. Then mix all in the cake and set it for an hour before the fire to rise, before you put it in the hoop. Mix your sweetmeats in it, 2 pounds of citron and 1 pound of candied orange and lemon peel cut in small pieces. Bake it in a deep hoop, butter the sides, put 2 papers at the bottom, flour it and put it in your cake. It must have a quick oven and it will take 4 hours to bake it. When it is drawn, ice it over the top and sides. Take 2 pounds of double refined sugar, beat and sifted, the whites of 6 eggs beat to a froth, with 3 or 4 spoonfuls of orange flower water and 3 grains of musk and ambergris. Beat these in a stone mortar with a wood pestle till it be as white as snow, and with a brush or bunch of feathers spread it all over the cake and put it into the oven to dry, taking care the oven does not discolour it. When it is cold, paper it and it will keep good 5 or 6 weeks. Another way to make a great rich cake. Take 4 pounds of flour dried and sifted, 7 pounds of currants clean washed, picked and rubbed well, 6 pounds of the best fresh butter, 2 pounds of Jordan almonds blanched and beat fine in a mortar with orange flower water and sack. Then take 4 pounds of eggs, put half the whites away, 3 pounds of double refined sugar beaten and sifted, a quarter of an ounce of cloves, the same of cinnamon and mace, 3 large nutmegs and a little ginger, all beaten fine and sifted, half a pint of sack, half a pint of good French brandy, some candied citron, orange and lemon peel to your liking and cut in slips. Work the butter to a cream with your hands before any of your ingredients are put in, then put in the sugar and mix them well together. Before you put in the eggs, let them be well beaten and strained through a sieve, then work in your almonds, put in the eggs and beat all well together till they look white and thick. Put in your sack, brandy and spices. Shake your flour in by degrees, and when the oven is ready, put in your currants and sweetmeats and work it up well. Put it into your hoop and bake it 4 hours in a quick oven. You must keep beating it with your hand all the while you are mixing it, and when your currants are washed and cleaned, put them before the fire to plump, so that they may go warm into the cake. You may bake this quantity in 2 hoops if you please, and when it is cold, ice it. To make a plum cake. Take 2 pounds 10 ounces of the finest flour well dried, 2 pounds of currants weighed after picked, washed and dried, 3 nutmegs finely grated, 3 or 4 blades of large mace, 10 cloves, a little cinnamon dried and beat fine. Mix all these into the flour with 2 ounces of fine sugar. Break into the basin the yolks of 12 eggs and the whites of 6. Beat into them a pint of very good yeast, not bitter, lest it spoil your cake. Strain it through an hair sieve into the middle of the flour. Set over the fire a pint of new cream, and when it is boiled, take it off. Put in a pound of new butter cut in thin slices, and as much saffron as will colour the cream. When the butter is all melted and the cream not very hot, pour into the flour as much as will make it like a pudding, but not too thin. Never offer to mould it, but lift it up with your fingers till your flour be wet all over. Flour a cloth and lay it before the fire for a quarter of an hour to rise. Put it into a frame well buttered and, with a knife dipped in flour, cut a crease across and prick it to the bottom with a bodkin, and set it over a quick fire. Set it in a quick oven, bake it a full hour, and draw it gently out of the oven, for shaking any cake will make it heavy. You may, if you please, add 6 spoonfuls of sack, some ambergris, citron and lemon. Ice it as soon as drawn, and set it in a proper place. If you follow these directions, it will eat as if a great quantity of almonds were in it. To make icing for the cake. Take a pound of the best refined sugar, sift it through a lawn sieve, take the whites of 2 eggs well beat with 4 or 5 spoonfuls of orange flower water. Put your sugar into the eggs and never leave beating them till they are as white as snow. Cover your cake all over and stick some thin slices of citron, if you put any in the cake. Another way to make icing for the cake. Take 7 pounds of flour, 2 pounds and a half of butter and mix them, 7 pounds of currants, 2 large nutmegs, half an ounce of mace and a quarter of an ounce of cloves, all finely beat and grated, 1 pound of sugar and 16 eggs, leaving 4 whites. Put in a full pint and a half of ale yeast, warm as much cream as you think will wet it, and put sack to your cream to make it as thick as batter. Beat also 1 pound of almonds with sack and orange flower water, but do not let them be fine but grossly beat. Put in a pound of candied orange, lemon and citron peel, or more if you desire it very rich. Mix all, put it into your hoop, with paste under it to save the bottom. To make a very fine rich plum cake. Take 4 pounds of the finest flour well dried and sifted, 6 pounds of the best fresh butter, 7 pounds of currants well washed, picked and rubbed very clean and dry, 2 pounds of Jordan almonds blanched and beat in a marble mortar with sack and orange flower water till they are very fine. Take 4 pounds of eggs, leave out half the whites, and add 3 pounds of double refined sugar, beat and sifted through a lawn sieve, with mace, cloves and cinnamon, of each a quarter of an ounce. 3 large nutmegs beat fine, a little ginger, of sack and brandy half a pint each, sweetmeats to your liking, lemon and citron. Take a large broad pan, beat the butter to a cream before any of your ingredients go in, minding to beat it all one way, or it will turn to oil. Put in the sugar, beat it well and work in your almonds. Let your eggs be well beat, put in and beat all together till it looks white and thick. Put in the brandy, sack and spices and shake your flour in by degrees. When your oven is ready, put in the currants and sweetmeats and put into your hoop. It will take 4 hours baking in a quick oven. Note: as you mix it for the oven, you must be mindful to keep beating it all the time with your hand, and your currants, as soon as cleaned, must be put in a dish before the fire, that they may be warm when mixed. The above quantity bakes best in 2 hoops. An ordinary plum cake. Take 3 pounds of flour, a little ale yeast, a pint of milk, a pound of sugar, a pound of butter and a little allspice. Make it into dough before you put in the plums, and work in as many as you please. End of section 11. Cakes, puffs, biscuits, etc. Part 2. To make a pound seed cake. Take a pound of flour, 1 pound of fine powder sugar, 1 pound of butter, 8 yolks and 4 whites of eggs, as much caraway seeds as you like. First beat up the butter to a cream with your hands, beating it one way lest it oil. Then by degrees beat in your eggs, sugar and flour till it goes into the oven. Bake it in a quick oven and it will take 1 hour and a quarter baking. To make another seed cake. Take 2 pounds of flour, 2 pounds of fresh butter rubbed well in, 10 yolks and 5 whites of eggs, 3 spoonfuls of cream and 4 spoonfuls of ale yeast. Mix all together, put it before the fire to rise, then work in a pound of caraway comfits and bake it in 1 hour and a quarter. To make a rich seed cake. Take 5 pounds of fine flour well dried and 4 pounds of single refined sugar beat and sifted. Mix these together and sift them through a hair sieve. Then wash 4 pounds of butter in 8 spoonfuls of rose or orange flower water, and work the butter with your hands till it is like cream. Beat 20 yolks and 10 whites of eggs, and put them to 6 spoonfuls of sack. Put in the flour a little at a time, and keep stirring it with your hand all the time. You must not begin mixing it till the oven is almost hot, and after it is mixed, let it stand some time before you put it into the hoop. When you are ready to put it into the oven, put to it 8 ounces of candied orange peel sliced, with as much citron, and 1.5 pounds of caraway comfits. Mix them well, and put it into the hoop. It must be a quick oven, and 2 or 3 hours will be sufficient to bake the cake, after which you may ice it if you please. To make little currant and seed cakes. Take 2 pounds of fine flour, 1.5 pounds of butter, the yolks of 5 or 6 eggs, 1.5 pounds of sugar, 6 spoonfuls of rose water, 9 spoonfuls of sack, 3 spoonfuls of caraway seeds, 2 nutmegs and 1 pound of currants. Beat the butter with your hand till it is very thin. Dry the flour well, put in the caraway seeds and nutmegs finely grated. Afterwards put them all into your batter with the eggs, sack and rose water. Mingle them well together, put in the currants, let your oven be pretty hot, and as soon as they are coloured they will be enough. To make licorice cakes. Take hyssop and red rose water, of each ½ pint, ½ pound of green licorice, the outside scraped off, and then beat with a pestle. Put to it ½ pound of anise seeds, and steep it all night in the water. Boil it with a gentle fire till the taste is well out of the licorice. Strain it, Put to it 3 pounds of licorice powder and set it on a gentle fire till it is come to the thickness of cream. Take it off and put to it half a pound of white sugar candy seared very fine. Beat this well together for at least 3 hours, and never suffer it to stand still. As you beat it, you must strew in double refined sugar finely seared, at least 3 pounds. Half an hour before it is finished, put in half a spoonful of gum dragon steeped in orange flower water. When it is very white, then it is beat enough. Roll it up with white sugar, and if you want it perfumed, put in a pastil or two. To make Nun's Cake. Take 4 pounds of very fine flour, and mix with it 3 pounds of double refined sugar, finely beat and sifted. Dry them by the fire till your other materials are prepared. Take 4 pounds of butter, beat it in your hands till it is very soft like cream. Beat 34 eggs, leave out 16 whites, and take out the treeds from all. Beat the eggs and butter together till it appears like butter. Pour in 4 or 5 spoonfuls of rose or orange flower water, and beat it again. Then take your flour and sugar with 6 ounces of caraway seeds. Strew it in by degrees, beating it up all the while for 2 hours together. Put in as much tincture of cinnamon or ambergris as you please. Butter your hoop and let it stand 3 hours in a moderate oven. To make Saffron Cakes. Take a quarter of a peck of fine flour, 1.5 pounds of butter, 3 ounces of caraway seeds, and 6 eggs. Beat a quarter of an ounce of cloves and mace together very fine, a pennyworth of cinnamon, beat a pound of sugar, a pennyworth of rosewater, a pennyworth of saffron, a pint and a half of yeast, and a quart of milk. Mix all together lightly with your hands, thus. First boil the milk and butter, scum off the butter, and mix it with the flour and a little of the milk. Stir the yeast into the rest and strain it. Mix it with the flour, put in your seed, spice, rosewater, tincture of saffron, sugar and eggs. Beat all up with your hands very lightly, and bake it in a hoop or pan, minding to butter the pan well. It will take an hour and a half in a quick oven. You may leave out the seed if you choose. To make a rich yeast cake. Take 1.25 quarts of fine flour, 6 pounds of currants, an ounce of cloves and mace, some cinnamon, 2 nutmegs, about 1 pound of sugar, some candied lemon, orange and citron cut in thin pieces, a pint of sweet wine, some orange flower water, a pint of yeast, a quart of cream, 2 pounds of butter melted and put in the middle. Strew some flour over it, let it stand half an hour to rise. Knead it well together, let it stand some time before the fire, work it up well, put it in a hoop, and bake it 2 hours and a half in a gentle oven. To make little queen cakes. Take 2 pounds of fine flour, 1.5 pounds of butter, the yolks of 6 eggs, 1.5 pounds of sugar, 6 spoonfuls of rosewater, 9 spoonfuls of sack, 2 nutmegs, and 2 pounds of currants. Beat the butter with your hand till it is very thin. Dry your flour well, put in the sugar and nutmegs finely grated, and put them all into your batter, with the eggs, sack, and rosewater. Mingle them well together, put in the currants, let your oven be moderately hot, and they will be baked in 1/4 hour. Let your currants be nicely washed and cleaned. Another way to make little queen cakes. Take 1 pound of sugar, beat it fine, pour in the yolks and whites of 2 eggs, half a pound of butter, a little rose water, 6 spoonfuls of warm cream, a pound of currants, and as much flour as will make it up. Stir them well together, and put them into your patty pans, being well buttered. Bake them in an oven almost as hot as for bread for half an hour. Then take them out and glaze them, and let them stand but a little after the glazing is on to rise. To make Marlborough cakes. Take 8 eggs, yolks and whites, beat and strain them, and put them to a pound of sugar beaten and sifted. Beat these 3/4 of an hour together, then put in 3/4 of a pound of flour well dried and 2 ounces of caraway seeds. Beat all well together and bake it in broad tin pans in a brisk oven. To make Uxbridge cakes. Take a pound of wheat flour, 7 pounds of currants, half a nutmeg and 4 pounds of butter. Rub your butter, cold, well among the meal. Dress the currants well in the flour, butter and seasoning, and knead it with as much good and new yeast as will make it into a pretty high paste. Usually 2 pennyworth of yeast to that quantity. After it is kneaded well together, let it stand an hour to rise. You may put half a pound of paste in a cake. To make pepper cakes. Take a gill of sack and 1/4 of an ounce of whole white pepper. Put it in and boil it together for 1/4 of an hour, then strain out the pepper and put in as much double refined sugar as will make it like a paste. Then drop it, in what shape you please, on a tin plate and let it dry itself. To make Maudling cakes. Take 1/4 of a peck of flour well dried before the fire. Add 2 pounds of mutton suet tried and strained clear off, and when it is a little cool, mix it well with the flour, some salt, and a very little allspice beat fine. Take half a pint of good yeast, and put in half a pint of water. Stir it well together, strain it, and mix up your flour into a paste of a moderate stiffness. You must add as much cold water as will make the paste of a right order, and make it into cakes about the thickness and bigness of an oat cake. Have ready some currants, clean washed and picked. Strew some in the middle of your cakes between the dough, so that none can be seen till the cake is broke. You may leave the currants out if you do not choose them. To make caraway cakes. To a pound of flour, add a pound of new butter without salt, 8 spoonfuls of good yeast, 4 spoonfuls of rose water, the yolks of 3 new laid eggs, caraway seeds, as many as you please, 4 ounces of sugar, and some ambergrease. Knead all into a paste, make it up into what form you please, and when they come out of the oven, strew on sugar. To make almond cakes. Take a pound of double refined sugar finely seared, 1/4 of a pound of the best almonds laid in cold water all night and blanched. Take the white of an egg, put to it a spoonful of rose water, and beat it to the whiteness of snow, letting it stand half an hour. Beat your almonds, putting thereto a spoonful of rose water, a little at once, and the same with the egg. When the almonds are well beat, put the sugar in by degrees, taking care not to wet the paste too much whilst you roll out the cakes. You must continue beating till all be used, and when your cakes are made, lay them severally on papers with some seared sugar over them. Bake them in an oven as hot as for your sugar cakes. To make Portugal cakes. Put a pound of fine sugar, a pound of fresh butter, 5 eggs and a little mace beaten into a broad pan. Beat it with your hands till it is very light and looks curdling. Then put thereto a pound of flour and half a pound of currants very dry. Beat them together, fill tin pans and bake them in a slack oven. You may make seed cakes the same way, only put in caraway seeds instead of currants. To make Dutch cakes. Take 5 pounds of flour, 2 ounces of caraway seeds, half a pound of sugar, and something more than a pint of milk. Put into it 3/4 of a pound of butter, then make a hole in the middle of the flour and put in a pint of good ale yeast. Pour in the butter and milk and make these into a paste, letting it stand 1/4 of an hour before the fire to rise. Then mould and roll it into cakes pretty thin. Prick them all over, or they will blister, and bake them in 1/4 of an hour. To make Shrewsbury cakes. Take half a pound of butter, beat it to a cream, put in half a pound of flour, 1 egg, 6 ounces of loaf sugar beat and sifted, half an ounce of caraway seeds mixed into a paste. Roll them thin and cut them round with a small glass or little tins. Prick them and lay them on sheets of tin and bake them in a slow oven. Another way to make Shrewsbury cakes. Take 2 pounds of flour, a pound of sugar finely seared, and mix them together. Take out 1/4 of a pound to roll them in, then take 4 eggs well beat, 4 spoonfuls of cream and 2 of rosewater. Beat them well together, mix them with the flour into a paste, roll them into thin cakes and bake them in a quick oven. To make Banbury cakes. Take half a peck of fine flour, 3 pounds of currants, a pound and a half of butter, 1/4 of a pound of sugar, 1/4 of an ounce of cloves and mace, 3/4 of a pint of ale yeast, and a little rosewater. Boil as much milk as will serve to knead it, and when it is almost cold, put in as much caraway seed as will thicken it. Work it all together at the fire, pulling it to pieces 2 or 3 times before you make it up. To make Whetstone cakes. Take half a pound of fine flour and the same quantity of loaf sugar seared, a pound of caraway seeds dried, the yolk of 1 egg, the whites of 3, a little rosewater with ambergrease dissolved in it. Mix all well together and roll it out as thin as a wafer. Cut them with a glass, lay them on floured paper and bake them in a very slow oven. To make Bean cakes. Take an equal weight of fine sugar and blanched almonds cut in long narrow slices. Slice some preserved orange, lemon and citron peel. Beat the white of a new laid egg with a little orange flower water to a high froth. Put as much of the froth into sugar as will just wet it, and with the point of a knife build up your almonds, piling it round as high as you can upon a wafer. Let some of the ambergrease be in your sugar, and bake them after the manner of a manchet. To make Gum cakes. Take gum dragon, let it lie all night in rosewater till it is dissolved, having double refined sugar beaten and seared, and mix your gum and sugar together. Make it up into a paste, then roll some up plain and some with herbs and flowers. All the paste must be kept separately. The herbs and flowers must be beat small before you make them into a paste. But you may use the juice of the flowers and herbs only. Sweet marjoram, red roses, marigolds, clove gillyflowers and bluebottle berries, all clipped from the white. When you have made all your colours ready, have to every one a little rolling pin and a knife, or else the colours will mix. First lay a white and then a colour, then a white again, for two colours will not do well. So roll them up, and cut them the bigness of a sixpence, but in what form you please, minding that they are rolled very thin. To make honeycomb cakes. Boil your sugar to a candy height, then put in your flowers, which must be cut. Have little papers with four corners ready. Drop some of your candy on the papers, take them off when ready, and if they are rightly done, they will look full of holes like honeycombs. To make lemon cakes. Take the best coloured lemons, scrape out the blacks and grate off the peel clean. Put the peel into a strainer, wet what sugar you think will serve, and boil it to a candy height. Then take it off and put in the lemon peel. When it boils, take it off, squeeze in a little lemon juice and drop them on buttered plates or papers. You may put in musk or ambergris if you please. To make lemon, orange and flour cakes. Take sugar finely seared and wet it with the juice of orange or any flowers you fancy. There must be no more juice than will make your paste stiff and thick. Set it upon the fire when it begins to boil. Drop it in little cakes, and they will come off presently. Scurvy grass done thus is good against the scurvy. If it boils, you will spoil it. To make violet cakes. Beat your sugar wherein gum hath been steeped, put in the violets and the juice, and so work it together with seared sugar, and dry them in a stove. To make wormwood cakes. Take 1 pound of double refined sugar sifted, mix it with 3 or 4 eggs well beat, and drop in as much chemical oil of wormwood as you please. Drop them on papers. You may have them of various colours by pricking them with a pin and filling the holes with the colour. The colours must be kept separate in small gallipots. For red, take a dram of cochineal, some cream of tartar, and as much alum. Tie them up severally in little bits of fine cloth, and put them to steep in a glass of water 2 or 3 hours. When you want the colours, press the bags in the water, and mix some of it in a little white of egg and sugar. Saffron for the yellow, prepared as the red. For green, mix blue with the saffron. For blue, put powder blue in water. To make a pound cake. Take a pound of butter, beat it in an earthen pan with your hand one way, till it is like a thick cream. Then have ready 12 eggs, but half the whites. Beat them well, and beat them up with the butter, a pound of flour beat in it, a pound of sugar, and a few caraways. Beat it all well together for an hour with your hand, or a great wooden spoon. Butter a pan and put it in, and then bake it an hour in a quick oven. For change, you may put in a pound of currants, clean washed and picked. To make butter cakes. Take a dish of butter and beat it with your hands till it is like cream, 2 pounds of fine sugar beat and sifted, 3 pounds of flour well dried, and mix the butter with 24 eggs, leave out half the whites, and then beat all together for 1 hour. When you are going to put it into the oven, add 1/4 ounce of mace and a nutmeg beaten, a little sack and brandy, and seeds or currants as you please. To make rice cakes. Take the yolks of 16 eggs and beat them half an hour with a whisk. Put to them 3/4 pound of loaf sugar beat and sifted fine, and beat it well into the eggs. Put in half a pound of the flour of rice, a little orange flower water and brandy, and the rinds of 2 lemons grated. Then beat 7 whites with a whisk for an hour, and beat all together for 1/4 of an hour, then put them in small hoops and bake them half an hour in a quick oven. To make Prussian cakes. Dry half a pound of fine flour well, a pound of fine sugar beaten and sifted, 7 eggs, and beat the whites and yolks separately, the peels of 2 lemons grated fine, and the juice of 1 1/2, and a pound of almonds beat fine with rose water. As soon as the whites are beat to a froth, put in the yolks and everything else except the flour, and beat them together for half an hour. Beat in the flour just before you put it into the oven. To make Bath Cakes. Take half a pound of butter and rub it into a pound of flour. Add 1 spoonful of good yeast, warm some cream and make it a light paste and set it to the fire to rise. When you make them up, take 4 ounces of caraway comfits, work part of them in and strew the rest on the top. Form them into round cakes about the size of a French roll. Bake them on tin sheets and send them in hot for breakfast. To make gingerbread cakes. Rub 1 pound of butter into 3 pounds of flour, 1 pound of sugar, 2 ounces of ginger beat fine and sifted, and a large nutmeg grated. Then take a pound of treacle, a gill of cream, warm them together and make up the bread stiff. Roll it out and form it into thin cakes, or cut it round with a teacup or glass, or make it into nuts of any form or shape you please. Put it on oven plates and bake it in a slack oven. To make cakes of flowers. Boil double refined sugar to a candy height, and strew in your flowers and let them boil once up. Then with your hand lightly strew in a little double refined sugar sifted, and put it directly into little pans made of card and pricked full of holes at the bottom. You must set the pans on a cushion, and when they are cold, take them out. To make a cake, leaving out either eggs, sugar or butter. Make your cake as you do the pound cake. Leave out either the sugar, eggs or butter. But then you must add thick cream instead of the butter. Any of the 3 left out, the cake will be good. To make quince cakes. Take a pint of syrup of quinces and 2 quarts of raspberries picked, bruised and rubbed through a coarse sieve. Boil and clarify them together over a gentle fire, and as often as the scum rises, skim it off. Then add 1.5 pounds of sugar beat and sifted, and as much more boiled to a candy height, and pour it in hot. Boil all up together, take it off the fire, keep it stirring till it is nearly cold, then spread it on plates and cut it out in cakes of what shape you like, and dry them in a stove. To make Savoy cakes. Take an equal weight of eggs and sugar. Separate the yolks and whites. Put the sugar to the yolks with some lemon peel finely chopped, powder of orange flowers or a spoonful of the water. Beat up this well together, and also the whites, which mix with the yolks, stirring continually, and half as much weight of flour as of eggs. Pour it in the vessel it is to be baked in, well rubbed with butter. Bake it in a soaking oven about 1.5 hours. If it is of a good colour, you may serve it without garnishing. If not, as it may be too brown or too pale, glaze it with white sugar. To make sugar cakes. Take 3 pounds of fine flour, dried well and sifted. Add 2 pounds of loaf sugar beaten and sifted. Put in the yolks of 4 eggs, a little mace, 1/4 pint of rose water, and, if you choose, musk or ambergris may be dissolved in your sugar. Mix all together, make it up to roll out, then bake them in a quick oven and sift some sugar on them. To make cream cakes. Sift some double refined sugar, beat the whites of 7 or 8 eggs, shake in as many spoonfuls of the sugar, grate in the rind of a large lemon, drop the froth on a paper laid on tin in lumps at a distance. Sift a good deal of sugar over them, set them in a middling oven, the froth will rise, just colour them. You may put raspberry jam and clap 2 bottoms together. Set them in a cool oven to dry. To make a fashion cake. Mix a handful of flour with a pint of good cream, half a pound of beef suet melted and sifted, a quarter of a pound of sugar powder, half a pound of raisins stoned and chopped, dried flowers of orange, a glass of brandy, a little coriander and salt. Bake it as all other cakes about an hour, and glaze or garnish it. To make puff cakes. Make some fine puff paste, roll it as thin as a crown piece. Take a dish of the bigness of the cake you design to make and place the same over the paste, which cut round. Then put it on a sheet of paper or a tin plate. Make another round piece of paste in the same manner, cutting it in what figures you please. Fill the first abyss either with a marmalade of apricots or apples, or with a cream of pistachios, and cover it with your abyss cut out into figures. Then bake your cake, and when done, strew some fine sugar over it and glaze it with a red-hot fire shovel. Put it in a dish and serve it up either hot or cold. If it is filled with cream, serve it up always hot. To make sword knots. Make a second best paste and roll it very thin. Cut it in thongs like ribbons, some with a knife and some with a dented paste cutter to make the scallop. Fold them like a sword knot. Wet the paste with eggs where it should join together. Bake them on a baking plate, and when ready to serve, garnish with currant jelly, apricot marmalade, frothed cream, or anything else. End of section 12. Cakes, puffs, biscuits, etc. Part 3. To make Lisbon cake. In order to make this cake, get 4 or 5 pounds of fine flour. Make a good puff paste and roll it as thin as a half-crown piece. Then put it over a dish of the bigness of your cake you design to make. Cut your paste round it and put it upon a sheet of paper. Cut out in the same manner 7 or 8 abysses more, cutting one of them into several figures, to be placed on the top of your cake. Let them be baked separately, then glaze the abyss, cut out into figures, and make your cake as follows. Put over one of these abysses a laying of apricot marmalade. Over this another abyss with a laying of currant jelly, then another abyss over the last with gooseberry jelly. Continue after the same manner to place the rest of your abysses, putting between them your several layings of preserved raspberries, apple jelly, etc. Place on the top your figured and glazed abyss so that the rest may not be seen. The cake must be glazed with a white, green and cochineal colour glaze, that it may appear no more than one abyss. Make the glaze thus. Beat together in an earthen vessel with a wooden spoon about a pound of powder sugar, the white of 2 eggs and the juice of half a lemon. If this mixture proves to be too thin, put some more sugar in it. Then divide this composition into 3 parts. In the first put nothing. but leave it white as it is. In the second, put a little cochineal to make it red, and the third green, with some juice of spinach. Glaze the cake from top to bottom, first with a streak of the white composition, then with a streak of the red, and afterwards with a streak of the green, following the same order till your cake is entirely glazed. Dry the icing by putting the cake for a little while in a warm oven or before the fire, turning it round pretty often. Then lay it on a dish and serve it up. It may be made as small or as large as you please. To make a cake in the form of a snail. Get some puff paste and cream made after the same manner as has been before directed. It may be made either white or green. Spread your paste the length of 1 or 2 yards, of the breadth of 4 or 6 fingers, and about the thickness of 2 crown pieces. Put your cream in the middle of the whole length of it, and close the paste so that your cream may not run out, and make it in the shape of a sausage. Then put it on paper well buttered, turning it round to imitate the form of a snail, and rub it with beaten eggs. Bake it in a moderate oven and glaze it. To make white loaves. Take double refined sugar, a little musk and ambergris, wet them with the white of an egg, beaten to a froth to the thickness of a paste. When beaten and tempered well together with a wooden spoon, take as much as a filbert made up and cut round the middle like a loaf. Put them in the oven upon papers, taking care it be not too hot, for they must be perfectly white, only a little coloured at the bottom of the sugar. The longer they are beaten with the back of the spoon, the better. To make common biscuits. Beat up 6 eggs with a spoonful of rose water and a spoonful of sack. Then add a pound of fine powdered sugar and a pound of flour. Mix these into the eggs by degrees, with an ounce of coriander seeds. Shape them on white thin paper or tin moulds in any form you please. Beat the white of an egg, and with a feather rub it over and dust some fine sugar over them. Set them in an oven moderately heated till they rise and come to a good colour. And if you have no stove to dry them in, put them into the oven at night and let them stand till morning. To make ratifia biscuits. Take 4 ounces of bitter almonds, blanch and beat them as fine as you can. In beating them, put in the whites of 4 eggs, one at a time, and mix it up with sifted sugar to a light paste. Roll the cakes and lay them on wafer paper or tin plates. Make the paste so light as to take it up with a spoon, then bake them in a quick oven. To make sugar biscuits a cheap way. Take 1 pound of fine flour, 1 pound of powder sugar, a few almonds blanched and pounded. Mix these with 6 spoonfuls of rose water and the yolks and whites of 8 eggs, beat a full hour. When well mixed, put it into small tin pans of various forms, and bake them only with the heat of the oven after the batch is drawn, and stop the oven very close. To make Savoy biscuits. Take 8 eggs, separate the whites from the yolks, and beat the whites till they are very high. Then put your yolks in with a pound of sugar. Beat this for a quarter of an hour, and when the oven is ready, put in 1 pound of fine flour and stir it till it is well mixed. Lay the biscuits upon the paper and ice them, only taking care the oven is hot enough to bake them speedily. Another way to make Savoy biscuits. Take 12 eggs, leave out half the whites, beat them up with a small whisk, put in 2 or 3 spoonfuls of rose or orange flower water, and, as you beat it up, strew in a pound of double refined sugar, well beat and finely sifted. When the eggs and sugar are as thick and white as cream, take a pound and 2 ounces of the finest flour that is dried and mix with it. Then lay it in long cakes and bake them in a cool oven. To make Naples biscuits. Put 3/4 of a pound of very fine flour to a pound of fine sugar sifted. Sift it 3 times, then add 6 eggs well beat and a spoonful of rose water. When the oven is almost hot, make them, but take care that they are not made up too wet. To make Sponge Biscuits. Beat the yolks of 12 eggs for half an hour, then put in 1.5 pounds of fine sugar beat and sifted. Whisk it well till you see it rise in bubbles. Then beat the whites to a strong froth and whisk them well with the sugar and yolks. Beat in 1 pound of flour with the rind of 2 lemons grated. Butter your tin moulds, put them in and sift fine powder sugar over them. Put them in a hot oven, but do not stop the mouth of it at first. They will take half an hour baking. To make Spanish Biscuits. Beat the yolks of 8 eggs for half an hour. Then beat in 8 spoonfuls of fine sugar. Beat the whites to a strong froth, then beat them well with your yolks and sugar for half an hour. Put in 4 spoonfuls of fine flour and a little lemon peel grated. Bake them on papers in a moderate oven. To make Drop Biscuits. Beat the yolks of 10 eggs and the whites of 6, with 1 spoonful of rose water, half an hour. Then put in 10 ounces of loaf sugar, beat and sifted. Whisk them well for half an hour. Then add 1 ounce of caraway seeds crushed a little, and 6 ounces of fine flour. Whisk in your flour gently, drop them on wafer papers, and bake them in a moderate oven. To make French Biscuits. Having a pair of clean scales ready, in one scale put 3 new laid eggs, in the other scale as much dried flour as is equal in weight with the eggs. Take out the flour and as much fine powdered sugar. First beat the whites of the eggs up well with the whisk till they are of a fine froth. Put in half an ounce of candied lemon peel cut very thin and fine, and beat well. Then, by degrees, put in the flour and sugar, slip in the yolks, and with a spoon temper it well together. Shape your biscuits on fine white paper with a spoon, and throw powdered sugar over them. Bake them in a moderate oven, not too hot, giving them a fine colour on the top. When they are baked, with a fine knife cut them off from the paper and lay them in boxes for use. To make Lemon Biscuits. Take the whites of 4 eggs and yolks of 10. Beat them 1/4 hour with 4 spoonfuls of orange flower water. Add to it 1 pound of loaf sugar beaten and sifted. Beat them an hour longer. Stir in half a pound of dry flour and the peel of a lemon grated off. Butter the pan, sear some sugar over them as you put them into the oven, and when they are risen, take them out and lay them on a clean cloth. When the oven is cool, put them in again on sieves and let them stand till they are dry and will snap in breaking. To make Hard Biscuits. Take half a peck of fine flour, 1 ounce of caraway seeds, the whites of 2 eggs, 1/4 pint of ale yeast, and as much warm water as will make it into a stiff paste. Form it into long rolls, bake them an hour, and the next day pare them round. Then slice them into pieces about half an inch thick. Dry them in the oven, draw and turn them and dry the other side, and they will keep a whole year. To make iced biscuits the French way. Take the whites of 8 and the yolks of 6 eggs. Put to them 1 pound of loaf sugar beat and seared, and beat them 2 hours. Have ready 14 ounces of fine flour double beat, sifted and well dried in an oven or over coals. When the oven is swept and your plates buttered, put in the flour as fast as you can mingle them together, and lay them upon the plates, putting a little musk and ambergrease finely beat into them. You must be very quick after the flour is in, and set them in a quick oven. This will make 20 large ones, laying 1 spoonful out for each. To make orange biscuits. Take your oranges and water them 2 days. Boil them tender, shift the water they are boiled in, and put them to another that is hot. When they are tender, take them up, and put them in a cloth to dry, minding the meat be taken out of the oranges. Then take their weight and a half of double refined sugar finely beaten. Let your oranges be beat in a stone mortar. Strew the sugar on them as they are beating, and when the pulp is very small and the sugar taken up with beating, then take it out and lay it on glasses like your paste, minding to be quick in laying it out, for fear it should grow rough and dry too fast. Set them in an oven after manchets, and keep them in a stove to dry. Beat the pulp of your oranges very small, or else they will look rough, dark, tough and harsh. To make aniseed biscuits. To every 12 pounds of dough, put 20 ounces of butter, a pound of sugar, 2 ounces of aniseeds with a little rose water, and what spice you think fit, and bake it in a moderate oven. To make nuns biscuits. Take the whites of 6 eggs and beat them to a froth. Take also half a pound of almonds, blanch and beat them with the froth of the whites of your eggs as it rises. Then take the yolks with a pound of fine sugar. Beat these well together, and mix your almonds with the eggs and sugar. Put in 1/4 pound of flour with the peel of 2 lemons grated and some citron finely shred. Bake them in little cake pans in a quick oven, and when they are coloured, turn them on tins to harden the bottoms. But before you set them in the oven again, strew some double refined sugar on them finely sifted. Remember to butter your pans and fill them but half full. To make black caps of apples. Pare them, lay them in your pan, strew a few cloves over them, a little lemon peel cut very small, and 2 or 3 blades of cinnamon with some coarse sugar. Cover the pan with brown paper, set them in an oven with the bread, and let them stand till the oven is cold. To make chocolate almonds. Take a pound of chocolate finely grated, and 1.5 pounds of the best sugar finely sifted. Soak some gum dragon in orange flower water, and work them into what form you please. The paste must be stiff. Dry them in a stove. You may write devices on paper, roll them up, and put them in the middle. To make wafers. Take 1 pound of fine flour and 8 eggs, beat them well together. Put in a penny loaf grated, 1 nutmeg, 2 glasses of sack, a spoonful of yeast, better than ½ pound of melted butter, and as much milk as will make it a thick batter. Let it stand 3 or 4 hours to rise. They must be well beaten, and when you have rolled them out thin, put them into any shape and bake them. Another way to make wafers. Dry the flour very well, either in a silver or pewter basin on a charcoal fire. Stir it often that it may not burn, and when cold, sift it through a hair sieve. Then make a thin batter with cream, a little water, sack, cinnamon, and mace beaten and sifted with double refined sugar. Mix and beat all well together, and when your irons are clean and very hot, rub them with a little butter and a clean rag. Then put them on and turn the irons, first one way and then another, till you think they are brown, which will be in a short time. Take them off the irons and roll them about your finger or a stick, and keep them in a tin pot near the fire. You must make them over a quick charcoal fire, or else they will not come off the irons whole. To make sugar wafers. Sift some fine sugar. Put about 2 spoonfuls at a time in a small silver porringer or silver ladle. Wet it with juice of lemon till it be a little thin. Put in 2 drops of sack, with what perfume you like. Throw it over a very slow fire. When a thin white skin rises, stir it and drop it on square papers as broad as your hand. If you make coloured ones, mix the colours as you do lemons and make them as thin as you can, which you must do by turning your papers up and down. Make it run and spread it with your fingers. About 2 spoonfuls will make 3 or 4 wafers. They do best upon thin papers, that you may turn them round and work them together as is used to be done for sugar. Place and pin them up at one corner in a warm place till they are dry. It must not be in too hot a place when it comes off. To make bean or almond bread. Take a pound of pure white almonds and blanch them in cold water, taking care you pare not the almonds. Take a pound of double refined sugar, beat and sifted. Then do your almonds and slice them the round way. As you cut them, strew on sugar, stirring them all together that they do not stick. Be sure you have sugar to the last, and always stir them, for if they cleave to each other, they will not be good. They must be put in an earthen basin. Put in a small spoonful of caraway seeds, mingle these well together, and add a little gum dragon dissolved in rose water and strained. Put in also 3 grains of musk and ambergris, dissolved in fine sugar, and the froth of 2 eggs beaten with rose water. Make your froth as light as you can, and put in 2 spoonfuls of fine flour. When these are well mixed, lay them on wafers as broad as macaroons, and the thickness of 2 flat almonds. Open them with a knife or bodkin, lest 2 or 3 pieces stick together. Lay them as hollow and low as you can to make them appear in the best manner, and the quicker you lay them out, the more hollow they will be. Put them in a well-heated oven, minding they do not scorch, which will destroy their beauty. When they are half baked, take them out, wash them with the white of an egg, scrape a little sugar over them, and let the egg be beaten to a froth, but let not your sugar be too gross. Set them into the oven about half an hour. Then you may take them out, and when cold, put them up. Note: you may lay out bean bread upon whole sheets of wafers and cut round to their size, the quantity being 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound of almonds, 6 sheets of wafers, and 1 pennyworth of gum dragon. You may leave out either the musk or ambergris if you please. To make tumbles of almonds. Take 3 ounces of almonds, blanch and cover them with a cloth from the air. Beat them in a stone mortar very fine, and, as you beat them, drop in a little gum dragon laid in sack, to keep them from oiling. When they are almost beaten enough, take the white of an egg beaten to a froth, 1 pound of double refined sugar finely beaten, and put it in by degrees, working it with your hands till it is all in a paste. Roll it out and bake it upon buttered plates, and set them in a hot oven. To make jumbles. Take a pound of fine flour and half a pound of sugar beaten and seared. Rub in a piece of butter the bigness of an egg, a little mace finely shred, the yolks of 4 eggs and the whites of 3 of them. Beat them with rose water and a few caraway seeds. Make it up in paste, with cream in what shape you please, and bake them. 1 pound of sugar and 10 eggs make them extremely rich. To make Lady Leicester's hollow gumballs. Take the white of 3 eggs, squeeze in the juice of a lemon and the peel grated in. With a whisk beat it up to a froth. Have ready half a pound of double refined sugar finely sifted. Take off the froth as it rises, and put it into the sugar till it be wet and thick like paste. Roll it into what form you please, lay them upon paper, and put them in a moderate hot oven. To make apricot jumbles. Take apricots, pare and slice them into a clean dish. Set them on the fire, and with a wooden spoon bruise them so that the pulp may be small. Dry them on the coals, stirring till they are dry and tough. Lay them out in glasses in a stove for 2 or 3 days. Cut them out in long pieces and roll them into rounds and shapes like tumbles. They must be rolled in double refined sugar, and then dry them well in a stove. To make orange tumbles. Take 4 oranges, let the peels be large with thick rinds. Take out all the meat and boil them in 3 several waters till they are tender, and the bitterness out of them. Then squeeze them hard, dry them in a coarse cloth, beat them in a stone mortar till they are come to a pulp. Then take as much double refined sugar, seared, as will work it into paste, and roll it into what shape you think proper. To make sugar puffs. Take the whites of 10 eggs and beat them till they rise to a high froth. Put it in a stone mortar or wooden bowl, and add as much double refined sugar as will make it thick. Put in some ambergrease to give it a taste, and rub it round the mortar for half an hour. Put in a few caraway seeds, take a sheet of wafers and lay it on as broad as a sixpence and as high as you can get. Put them in a moderate hot oven 7 or 8 minutes, and they will look as white as snow. To make seed puffs. Take gum dragon and steep it in rose water. Some double refined sugar, sear and wet it with some gum as stiff as paste. Work it with a spoon till it becomes white. Roll it out upon white paper very thin, and cut it out in shapes with a jigging iron, and bake it in an oven, taking care not to scorch it. To make tumblets. Take of fine sugar and flour 1 pound each, 8 eggs with their whites taken out, and beat the yolks with 2 spoonfuls of rose water. Take the quantity of a walnut of butter, which, along with the eggs, put to half the quantity of sugar and flour, and mingle in the other half gradually. Make some tumblets thus. Take a pound of sugar and mix it to the white of an egg well beaten. Put to it a little grated lemon peel, making it in little balls. Put them upon round papers and do them in a pan over the fire till they are enough. To make macaroons. Take a pound of almonds, scald and blanch them, and throw them into cold water. Dry them in a cloth, pound them in a mortar, and moisten them with orange flower water or the white of an egg, lest they turn to oil. Afterwards, take an equal quantity of white powder sugar, the whites of 4 eggs, and a little milk. Beat all well together, shape them round upon wafer paper with a spoon, and bake them in a gentle oven on tin plates. Another way to make macaroons. Take 1/4 pound of almonds blanched, and 3 ounces of sugar seared. Beat these together with a little of the white of an egg and rose water, till it is thicker than batter. Then drop it on wafer paper and bake it. To make brown almond gingerbread. Take 1/4 pound of blanched almonds, beat exceeding fine with water wherein gum arabic has been steeped, with a few drops of lemon juice, as much cinnamon beat, and some ginger finely grated and seared, as to make it brown. Make it sweet and smooth it well. Roll it out and cut it in square cakes rolled very thin. Dry it in a stove or before the fire. Another way to make brown almond gingerbread. Take 3 pounds of flour, a pound of sugar, a pound of butter rubbed in very fine, with 2 ounces of ginger and a grated nutmeg. Mix these with a pound of treacle and 1/4 pint of cream warm together. Then make your bread stiff, roll them out and make them in thin cakes, and bake them in a stove or oven. To make gingerbread. Take 1.5 pounds of London treacle, 2 eggs beat, half a pound of brown sugar, 1 ounce of ginger beat and sifted, of cloves, mace and nutmeg altogether half an ounce. Of very fine coriander and caraway seeds, half an ounce each. 2 pounds of butter melted and mixed together. Add as much flour as will knead it into a very stiff paste, and roll it out. Cut it into what form you please, bake it in a quick oven on tin plates, and a little time will be sufficient. Another way to make gingerbread. Take 3 pounds of fine flour, the rind of a lemon dried and beat to powder, half a pound or more of sugar, and 1.5 ounces of beat ginger. Mix all these together and make it stiff by adding and working in treacle. Make it into what form you please. You may put candied orange peel and citron in it. Butter the paper it is baked on and bake it hard and firm. To make wigs. Take 1 pound of butter cut in slices and put it into a pint of milk. Set it on the fire till it is melted, and take 1/4 peck of flour with some cloves, mace and ginger. Then beat 4 eggs, 1/4 pint of good yeast, and 3 or 4 spoonfuls of sack. When the milk is as warm as though just come from the cow, mix all together into a paste, and let it lie half an hour to rise. Then put to it a pound of caraway comfits, mould them into wigs, and bake them on papers. The oven must be very hot, and they will take a considerable time in baking. To make light wigs. Take 1.5 pounds of flour, and mix it with a pint of milk made warm. Cover it and let it lie by the fire half an hour. Then take half a pound of sugar and half a pound of butter. Work them in the paste and make it into wigs with as little flour as possible, and if the oven is quick, they will rise very much. To make chocolate puffs. Take half a pound of chocolate grated and a pound of double refined sugar beat fine and sifted. With the whites of 2 eggs make a paste, and have ready some more sugar to strew on the tins. Turn the rough side upwards and bake them in a slow oven. You may form the paste into any shape and colour it with different colours. To make black caps the best way. Take 1.5 dozen of very large French pippins or golden rennets. Cut them in half and lay them with the flat side downwards. Lay them as close to each other as you can. Press the juice of a lemon into 2 spoonfuls of orange flower water and mix them together. Shred some lemon peel into it and grate some double refined sugar over it. Put them into a quick oven, and half an hour's baking will be sufficient. End of section 13.